Claire. Fredericks. Nolan. Claudia. We've got Claudia in. Let's let Claire in. Let's let Chris in. Let's let Chris Wiley in. I'm assuming the rest of them are. There's two witnesses, maybe.
Oh, where'd you go?
Did we lose you already?
Yeah. What happened?
You're unstable. That was on YouTube.
That wasn't whispered very well.
Are y'all ready?
Okay, here. Oh, there.
My two witnesses should be signing on. I don't know if they're in the lobby or not, Judge.
One of them's name's Alyssa Brzezinski, and the other one's named Nolan Connell.
Yes, sir. All right. And the state is ready.
I just need my client,
Oh,
and then I'll be ready. I mean, he's been emailing me all morning, Judge. So if he's not there, he should be shortly.
he's not there. Did you send him the link for Zoom?
Yes, twice.
Okay. The answer is yes.
I just emailed him again, Judge, and texted him. So
There he is.
all right.
Andrew Martinez.
Yes.
All right. Do we have the waiver somewhere?
In the case, check out.
Groovy. All right. Mr. Martinez, we can't see you and you're muted. There you go.
There we go.
All right. All right. All right, this is 003-83232 2020 State of Texas versus. Wait for it to show up. Andrew Jacob Martinez. Mr. Martinez, is that your true name?
Yes, sir.
And do you understand what you are charged with?
Yes, sir.
Do you want the information read to you, or do you waive that?
I like the information read.
You like to have it read?
Yes, sir.
Andrew, usually we waive that. You know what you're charged with, right? It's a DWI.
Okay.
Do you want to waive it?
I would recommend that you waive it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And to the charge of driving while intoxicated, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Okay. And I have a document called a jury trial waiver. Do you understand what that document does?
Yes, sir.
It lets me hear the case rather than having a jury come hear the case.
Yes, sir.
Are you okay with me hearing the case rather than having a jury hear the case?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I've approved the jury trial waiver. The state may either make an opening statement or call your first witness.
Your Honor, the state will waive opening and we'll call our first officer, Nolan Connell.
Okay. Let me bring Mr. Connell in. Mr. Connell, you're muted right now. You need to unmute if you could. There you go.
Yes,
If you would, raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm testimony about to give be truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Officer Connell, can you please introduce yourself to the court?
My name is Officer Nolan Cannell, and I work for the.
Can you please spell that?
First name is Nolan, last name Connell.
And the audio kind of cut out. Where are you currently employed?
Wiley Police Department,
How long have you been employed there?
2.5 years.
Were you employed somewhere else before?
Yes, prior I was employed in Fort Myers, Florida as a police officer for the Lee County Sheriff's Office for 4.5 years.
In total, how long have you been a police officer?
In total, with my 5 years as an MP in the military, 12 years now.
You said how long did you spend in the military?
5 years.
Okay, in the Army?
Marine Corps.
Marine Corps? What are your current duties in your position with Plano PD?
With Wiley, I'm currently a.
I'm sorry, wait, Wiley.
Yes, I'm currently a patrol officer.
What sort of training did you have to go through to become a patrol officer?
I've gone through a basic police academy. And then after that, I went through the department year there in-service training, and then 3 months of field training before I was released on my own.
What sort of trainings do you do at this academy?
Everything from traffic stops, DWI detection, building searches, alarm responses, domestic violence calls, training as far as weapons, defensive tactics, everything.
Did you do training with DWIs in your time as an MP in the military?
Yes, I did.
Did you do training for DWIs as a officer in Florida?
Yes, I did.
And then did you have to redo that training to become a Wiley officer?
Yes, I had to go through a refresher update as well before when I got hired here.
What sort of things did you have to do as a refresher for training?
They go through all of the information just as it was a normal class. And then we did each part of the DWI investigation, retraining on it. And then we did several examples where we did it to another person and it was evaluated by the person teaching the class.
In your expansive time as an officer, would you say you've conducted few or many DWI investigations?
Many.
Many?
Yeah.
More than 100?
Yes, definitely.
Would you say you're familiar with the DWI investigation?
Yes.
During your time, have you made many or few arrests?
Many arrests.
Do you arrest everyone that you come across?
No, I do not.
What do you use to determine when you're going to arrest somebody versus not?
The totality of the circumstances based off of their driving habit for the reason that I was sent to the call, talking with the person, if they admit to drinking alcohol, the clues that I observed from their person, such as speech, their eyes, the odor of alcohol emanating from their person, along many other things.
So you take all those variables and then did your training, did they tell you what you're allowed to then analyze or how to analyze?
Yes.
Okay. And what do you use personally then once you have all those variables?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I'm sorry. So once you have all those variables and you've done your analysis, what is it that you are using as an officer in making your decision?
Probable cause.
Probable cause. Okay. On August 8th, 2020, were you employed with Wiley PD?
Yes, I was.
Were you actually working on that day?
Yes, I was.
You remember what shift you were?
Yes, night shift.
At 1:30 a.m., where were you?
I was on patrol in the area of Atlantis Boulevard and Stone Road, or it's East FM 544 at that location.
And what happened at that time?
I was dispatched to a motorist assist that was transferred to us from Collin County Sheriff's Office. A subject had called in and said that his vehicle had broken down and needed assistance.
Is that a common thing to occur?
Yes.
What is the typical response when you get a dispatch like that?
I usually respond. One officer will respond, and then once they get there, if they need assistance, they'll call for a second officer. Because of the location and where it was transferred to us versus Collin County.
What's the purpose for the officer to go and check it out?
Well, one, for safety of the roadway. Yes, it's still the middle of the night, but don't know if the vehicle is on and, if it has flashers on or anything like that. And then for the safety of the person involved, because it is dark. And a lot of times that's when bad accidents do happen.
Where did you get dispatched to?
It was the area of, it's like 1000 block of East FM 544.
What was there when you got there?
When I got there, I saw a black Nissan vehicle with its hazard lights on, was sitting like in a middle turnaround area, just sitting there in the middle. And then there was a male subject standing outside the vehicle that was, when I pulled up, was like crouched down looking at the front right driver's side area.
Was this location where you found the vehicle and operator of the vehicle a public place?
Yes.
Was it located in Collin County?
Yes.
And to your knowledge, is that within the state of Texas?
Yes, it is.
The male that you said you saw crouched down, do you see them in the Zoom hearing today?
Yes, I do.
Can you identify them either by the name on their little block or by an article of clothing?
Yes, the subject's name is showing Andrew Martinez.
Okay. Your Honor, the record show that the officer has identified the defendant.
Yeah, the record should show that.
Thank you, Your Honor. So you said the male was near the motor vehicle?
Yes, he was crouched down at the front right, which would be the front passenger side of the vehicle, like with his light looking at the vehicle.
And how did you approach the subject?
I turned on my emergency lights at that point, and then I had gotten out of my vehicle and walked up towards the back of the vehicle because I was parked behind him. The vehicle was facing northbound, so I parked right behind it, and I actually occupied the lane, and I got out and walked up to him as he walked towards me.
And what was your interaction at that point?
At that, I just kind of asked him what happened, asked what his plan was, if he needed a tow truck, if he needed us to call a tow truck for him, just kind of figure out the incident, what happened and what was going on with the vehicle.
What did he tell you happened to the vehicle?
He told me that he was driving from his house to go to the store, and while driving, the vehicle just broke. It made like a loud sound and broke, and he attributed it to the lower control arm breaking on the vehicle, and that he lost control, hit the curb, and then stopped in the middle of the road on his way to go to the store.
So he told you that he had operated the vehicle and it got to that point by his operation?
Yes, sir.
What did you then do next?
I continued to talk with him. We stood up at the front of his vehicle. I kind of looked at it a little bit. talked to him about his options, trying to figure out what I could do to help him.
Did you identify him at that point?
Yes, I did. I asked for his driver's license and gave it to dispatch over the radio.
What did you then, how did you further the investigation?
While continuing to talk to him and just kind of ask him what was going on, I kind of asked him a couple times back and forth what exactly happened, because it didn't really make sense to me. And so I kind of asked him, and during this conversation with him, I did detect that there was an odor of alcohol emanating from his person. I questioned him about that. He said, no, I didn't have anything to drink. I continued to go past it and kind of continued to ask more questions, and then came back to it again and kind of asked him a couple times different ways if he had consumed anything, and if so, how much had he consumed.
All right. Are you familiar with the odor of alcohol?
Yes, I am.
How are you familiar with it?
Training and experience, personal experience, and just training and stuff like that.
Are you able to detect the odor of alcohol just out in the open and the odor of alcohol coming from a person?
Yes.
Are you able to describe that difference?
Yeah. So coming from a person, it tends to smell very different from what would be like if you were to just pick up a beer and smell it. It's kind of hard to describe exactly what it smells like, but I can tell the difference through training experience of what that is.
And at that point, did you smell it in general, or as it was coming from a person?
As if it was coming from a person.
And that person was the defendant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What did you then decide to do?
At that point, I kind of explained to him what was going on. And I had asked him or told him that I would have him do parts of the standard field sobriety test. And so I escorted him over to the sidewalk to get him out of the middle of the road. At that point, I went through some questions that we have been trained to ask prior to doing the SFSTs, which determines your medical health issues, if he's ever been diagnosed with epilepsy, nystagmus, or any brain injuries, anything like that, which he answered no to all of my questions. So at that point, I did determine that he was a valid candidate. So I started with the horizontal gaze nystagmus test.
While you were talking to the defendant, did you hear, see, or smell anything else that possibly led you to believe he could have been intoxicated?
Before doing that, I did continue to ask him, like I said, and eventually he did admit to me that he had drank a couple beers. He said originally no, and then went back and forth, and a couple of times he did admit, said, yeah, it was 1, 2, or 3. And then he said, well, just 2. And then he said, well, just 1. And then he went back and said, no, I've had just 2. And that was it.
When you were looking at his eyes to determine his eligibility for the HGN, did you notice anything about them?
Yes, I noticed that his eyes were very glassy.
And what is that indicative of?
Of alcohol impairment.
So you said you were going to do the HGN. Can you tell me what that stands for?
Yes, it's horizontal gaze nystagmus. It's the first part of the standard field sobriety test.
And what is that test looking for?
It is looking for nystagmus, which is an involuntary jerking of the eyes.
Is there such thing as resting nystagmus?
Yes.
What is that?
Where the resting nystagmus is if you were to hold a stimulus and have them focus just on the stimulus, their eyes would show that nystagmus.
Did you test that with the defendant?
Yes, I did.
Did they have resting nystagmus?
I did not see resting nystagmus.
Your Honor, okay. If he drops off, do you want us to stop and wait, or?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay.
But he's back.
So what did you do next after you decided he was a good candidate for the test?
I explained the test to him, explained how it works, and had him assume the starting position for the test.
What is the starting position?
That is where they stand feet together, hands down at their side, their head is straight forward, and to look at the stimulus.
And while you did this, did you observe unequal tracking of the eyes or unequal pupil size?
During that part, no, because I hadn't actually started the test. At that point, I give them this, I lift up the stimulus, hold it 12 to 15 inches from their eyes. And I say, can you tell me what color the stimulus is? Which it was a red pen light. He'd said red. And then I have them reach up with their right index finger and touch the red light to confirm that they understand that that is the stimulus, which he did that. And then I did start the test. During the test, I did the lack of smooth pursuit. I did the equal tracking first, checked that, saw that it was equally tracking together, and then I did the lack of smooth pursuit. During that, I did see clues in both eyes. I went on to do the next part, which is the sustained and distinct nystagmus at maximum deviation. I could only see it in one eye at this point, and I don't know for sure if it was because he wasn't paying attention to the stimulus, because I was having to say it numerous times to watch the stimulus, or if it just, I didn't see it. So after I continued that, I did the onset prior to 45 degrees. Again, I didn't see that in either eyes. I did VGN, vertical gaze nystagmus as well. Did not see that. And at that point, I walked him back over to his vehicle because at that point I had not seen enough clues. And for me, through my training experience, doing the horizontal gaze nystagmus, knowing it to be the most validated, they're all validated, but the most, I can't think of the word to say.
Right.
The most accurate towards showing intoxication. At that point, I had not seen 4 clues, which you always look for 4 out of 6, shows indication of intoxication. So at that point, I kind of walked him back over to his vehicle and sat there and talked with him.
Okay, thank you. Your Honor, were you able to watch the State's Exhibit 1 body cam?
Yes, I was.
In the interest of time, are you okay with us not showing that right now during the trial? Because you watched.
Yeah. Did you want to offer it though?
Yes, I was going to offer 1, 2, and 3, the 2 body cams and vehicle cam.
Any objection?
Your Honor, I filed a motion to suppress, which I'd like to run with the trial. I agree they're authenticated. The motion to suppress is basically everything after the next part of the examination where Officer Cannell goes through and offers the PBT. I don't think any of the statements after that were consensually made. I believe they were coerced by the officer. I also don't think that the arrest, the DIC 24 should have been applied, because I don't think that there was probable cause to make an arrest for driving while intoxicated. So I'd like to run those issues with the trial. But that being said,
Yeah.
I have no other.
We'll let the your objections run with the trial, and those exhibits will be admitted for whatever purpose at this point. And I have watched the exhibit.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Ms. Officer Cannell, how many clues did you see at that point?
At that point, I only had seen 3.
And how many is enough to say that you want to continue with the tests?
4.
What 3 did you see?
I saw the lack of smooth pursuit in each eye, and then I only saw on one eye the onset at maximum deviation.
Is it normal to only see 3 or an odd number?
Not normally. Usually it means that either they weren't paying attention to the stimulus, or something happened where the officer didn't see it, or again, there's many other factors as well.
At that point, what did you, in your discretion, decide to do?
At that point, based off of my training experience and my discretion, at that point, I decided not to continue with the other SFSTs. And I walked back over towards where his vehicle was at and just talked to him. Again, asked him some other questions, and he continued to say, no, he only drank 2 beers. I explained to him, about a portable breath test, because I did believe that he had more than 2 beers. And to show him, for me, I only use a PBT to explain to somebody and show to them, okay, this is where you're really at. I don't use it for justification for me to do more. I don't use it for justification to go any further than that.
So at that point, when you finished the HGN, you said that you didn't have enough clues to continue, but did you believe he was intoxicated?
I did.
Why did you not arrest him at that point?
To be honest, at that point, I felt like I could have, but with discretion that I'm guaranteed to use, I just felt that at that exact moment, with everything going on and what I had seen so far, I didn't feel like I had fully gained everything that I needed to actually effect an arrest. So I decided that I would try to continue to talk to him a little bit more and go back to it.
And you mentioned a PBT. Without going into the actual number, tell me about using the PBT.
I just explain them what it is, how it works. And again, I just tell them, it's not to determine whether or not I'm going to arrest you. It's just to show you where you're at.
And did the defendant consent to use it?
Yes.
And did it show the presence of alcohol over a legal amount?
Yes.
And at that point, did you arrest the defendant?
Your Honor, I object to the question regarding showing an amount above the legal limit.
Same.
Is it sustained, Your Honor?
Yes.
At that point, you had the PBT. You arrest the defendant?
I'm not trying. No. Sorry. Apologize.
All right. Do you mean repeat the question?
Yes, please.
At that point, after he blew into the PBT, did you arrest the defendant?
No.
And why did you not at this point?
Again, just knowing where I was at and everything that I had seen, I still, at that point, I knew probable cause was there, but I just had not felt the need to arrest him at that moment.
Have you had probable cause before and decided not to arrest?
Yes.
And have you had probable cause before and decided to arrest?
Yes.
Each time, were you exercising discretion that was taught to you at the academy?
Yes, I was.
After you decided not to arrest after the PBT, what did you do next with the defendant?
I stood there with him and talked with him for a little bit. Eventually, my sergeant, Sergeant Cowan, arrived, and I spoke to him, told him everything that was going on. And at that moment, when I spoke with him and laid everything out that had happened, I realized that there was more to this than what I had originally kind of thought. Getting it out there and saying something out loud to somebody else made me realize, like, there's more to this, and I should continue to investigate further.
So without going into what he said, just your understanding of the conversation, at the end of the conversation, was your understanding that he was telling you what to do?
No, it was not. It was a fact that I was able to lay out everything that had happened, said it out loud, and realize at that moment, I'm not investigating this further, and I should at least investigate it further and make sure that I'm doing everything that I possibly can to make sure whether or not this individual is intoxicated.
From the point of your decision to not complete the SFSCs to now wanting to complete them, did the variables change?
No, not that I think.
So was probable cause, in your opinion, there during both times?
Yes.
Then what changed?
Just the fact of understanding everything that happened, the totality of the circumstances, looking at everything and saying it out loud made me realize that, that there was a possibility that he was withholding information, and that he was, maybe when I did the original test, that he didn't follow the stimulus, which is why I didn't see the other clue, and that going forward and just checking would not hurt. Either way, it would be the best option to make sure that there's not an intoxicated person operating a vehicle at that time.
At this point, you said you decided to do the SFSTs. What are the SFSTs?
They're standard field sobriety tests. It's a validated test done by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. It includes a horizontal gaze nystagmus, and then two very validated distinct divided attention psychophysical tests, which would be the walk and turn and the one leg stand.
Are they just used by Wiley, or are they standardized across the board?
They're standardized across the board in the entire United States.
So did you use them as a Marine?
Yes, I did.
And then in Florida?
Yes, I did.
How do they help you in a DWI investigation?
Based off the factors that we are trained to look for, the clues that are observed, each one has its own designation. There are certain clues for each one that we look for, and based off of that altogether determines intoxication.
And do you know if these tests are scientifically validated?
Yes, they are.
What is your opinion, based on your training experience, as to their reliability to give you information on the intoxication of a suspect or defendant?
I think they're the
Objection
most,
as to bolstering the testimony of the witness.
Sustained.
All right.
Right.
What are the decision points that you talked about in each test?
so for the horizontal gaze nystagmus, it's 4 out of 6 clues. On the walk-in turn test, there's 2 out of 8 clues. And then again, on the one leg stand, there's 2 out of 4 clues that we look for.
This second time you did the HGN, can you tell me how that happened?
Yes, again, I had him walk towards the front of the vehicle, away from traffic and away from any emergency lights. And I started with the horizontal gaze nystagmus. Again, explained it to him how to do the test. And then I did the actual test, which during this time I did see lack of smooth pursuit in both eyes and distinct and sustained nystagmus at maximum deviation in both eyes, which would be
During this entire investigation up to this point, was the defendant free to leave?
no, not at that point.
And did you have to force the defendant to do this second round of HGN?
No.
Did he consent?
Yes.
Tell me the results of this HGN.
This one I did determine that there was clues of intoxication based off of the 4 clues that I saw.
You saw 4 out of what was the maximum?
4 out of 6.
And then what did you decide to do?
At that point, I decided to continue on to the walk and turn test.
Okay. Did you describe to him the walk and turn?
Yes, I did.
And did you show him how to do it?
Yes, I did.
Did he indicate that he understood?
Yes, he did.
Okay, can you tell me about how all that went?
Yes, during the test, I had, again, sat there, explained it to him, made sure he understood it. After that, I had him complete the test, which during that I did see 2 clues, which was misses heel to toe and then steps off the line.
What are the maximum amount of clues on that?
There's a maximum of 8.
What's the decision point?
2.
And how many, you said you saw 2?
Yes, sir, I did.
What did you decide to do then?
At that point, I decided to continue to the next test, which would be the walk and turn test. I'm sorry, the one leg stand test.
Did you both explain to him how to do it and just didn't show him how to do it?
Yes, I did.
Did he indicate that he understood the instructions?
Yes, I did.
And how did that test go?
At that point, I had him do the test, and I saw 2 clues during that time.
What are the maximum amount of clues on that?
There's 4 clues.
And you said you saw how many? I'm sorry.
2 out of the 4.
What were the 2?
During that, it was he would hop and put his foot down.
So at the end of this battery of tests, what did you then decide with your discretion?
At this point, I explained to him everything that I saw, the clues that I saw, and that at this point he would be placed under arrest for driving while intoxicated.
And did you actually place him under arrest?
Yes, I did.
Did you inform him of the factors that you considered or what you saw that indicated he was intoxicated?
I explained to him that based off of everything that I had seen, everything that had happened, that he was being placed under arrest. I did not tell him the exact clues that I saw.
During this whole time, did you have a backup officer?
Yes, I did.
Sergeant Callan?
Yes.
Who was that officer?
Did you say other than Sergeant Callan?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Officer Womack.
Why wasn't he present during most of these?
Because he's very good, close friends with Mr. Martinez.
And so why did he then stay back? What would that change?
He stayed back just for he didn't want it to be presumed that him being there would help his friend in any way.
Did he stay back the entire time, or did he come up at one point and leave?
He did come up at one point after I did the first horizontal gaze nystagmus test. He came up and sat there until Sergeant Callan got there.
And did his friendship with the defendant change your analysis of the intoxication variables?
Not at all.
No. Okay. Thank you. Your Honor, this is where he said the motion to suppress would be placed. Am I able to continue with my questioning and what happened, or?
Yeah, you can keep on with your questions. I took it, it's running with the trial, so.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. After you placed the defendant under arrest, what did you do?
I placed him in the rear of my patrol vehicle, and I used my DIC 24 form, which I read to him, which is the statutory warning. Explained to him that, made sure he verbally understood, and then I asked for him to provide a blood sample, which he agreed to.
Is the DIC 24 like a standardized form?
Yes.
Did you summarize it or did you read it exactly how it is?
No, I have a laminated form that I carry in my vehicle, and I show that to them as I'm reading it, and I read it aloud word for word.
And you said at the end of that, did he consent or did he deny a blood draw?
He consented.
What did you then do?
At that point, I transported him to our local hospital, Baylor Scott and White, where I met with the registered nurse on duty at that point to complete the blood draw.
Do you remember her name?
Yes, Joni Ramon.
And did you stay with them the entire time that the blood draw occurred?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, if just want to note that part of the stipulation was the blood draw itself. Mr. Fredericks did not stipulate to the results, but I just want to say we're kind of getting to right where we agreed that it would be entered in.
Okay.
That's true, Your Honor. I did stipulate as to the nurse's role in this and the chain of custody.
Yeah, I'll, at this point, I'll omit everything related to the blood draw with the exception of the result.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor.
Is that all right?
Thank you. So what you observed, officer, of the blood draw, was everything done to the standards that you're aware of?
Yes, sir.
What did you then do with the blood?
At that point, it stays with me, goes in with me. I label it how it's supposed to be labeled, and then it stays with me until I get back to the police department to place it into evidence.
After you place it into evidence, what occurs?
Once it gets placed into evidence, evidence takes care of it.
And what do you mean takes care of it?
I don't know their procedures exactly on what they do with it, but I know that once we turn it over to them, it's in their hands. So to be honest, I don't know exactly what they do with it. I know eventually it gets sent to the lab to get tested.
Okay, so the purpose of you giving it to them is for the testing?
Yes.
What did you do with the defendant?
At that point, after the blood draw was completed, he was transported to Collin County Sheriff's Office, where he's turned over to the detention staff.
All right, Your Honor, give me 1 second. I'm going to check my notes.
Okay.
All right, Your Honor, I'll pass the witness.
Any questions from defense?
Yes, Your Honor. It's Officer Cannell.
Yes, sir. Officer Cannell.
Okay. Sorry, I just want to make sure I got it right. I have Connell in my head. Officer Cannell, did you get a chance to watch the video recordings from your body camera and the in-car video prior to testifying this morning?
Yes.
Okay. And did you also get a chance to read your police report today?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree with me that you never saw Mr. Martinez driving a motor vehicle that day?
Correct. I did not see him driving.
Okay. And you also don't know how long Mr. Martinez was at the traffic scene before you arrived, correct?
No, sir.
And you don't know when Mr. Martinez had his last drink?
He told me approximately 30 minutes prior to this.
Okay. But you don't know that that's when he had his last drink. That's what he told you at the time.
Correct. When I asked him, that's what he advised me.
Okay. And you don't know whether or not he had had anything to drink after the car broke down and before you arrived, correct?
No, I do not know that.
Okay. Did you search the properties around that street area to see if there's any empty beer cans or beer bottles or anything like that?
No, sir.
Okay. Would you agree that Mr. Martinez's balance was normal while you were talking to him?
Yes, sir.
Would you agree that his answers about what happened with his car and why he was out that night and where he worked, all those things were normal answers to the questions you were asking?
I believe they're normal.
Okay. And you'd agree with me that you didn't reach the decision point on the HGN the first time you administered it?
I'm sorry. I didn't understand your question.
You'd agree that the first time you administered the HGN that you did not reach the decision point?
Correct.
Okay. And after that, you had a phone conversation with Officer Womack, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd agree with me that your half of that conversation is recorded on your body camera microphone?
Correct. I do believe that I actually had that conversation prior to doing the HGN, if I remember from my video.
Okay, well, obviously the video is admitted in evidence, and so the judge can watch it again if he needs to, but it'll have an accurate timing of when your phone conversations were, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Do you recall telling Officer Womack that, quote, "I just did an eye test on him real quick, he's good"?
As possible.
Okay. So if he's good, that would suggest that perhaps at that point you didn't think that Mr. Martinez was intoxicated, correct?
At that point.
Okay. And you agree with me that you told Mr. Martinez that you didn't have enough to even continue the standardized field sobriety tests, correct?
I don't remember if that was my exact words or not.
Okay. Did you put the results of the first HGN test in your police report?
I thought I did, but after reviewing it, no, I did not.
Okay. And then we talked briefly about the PBT. Would you agree with me that you told Mr. Martinez that no matter what the result was, he was not going to be arrested that night?
Correct.
Okay. And do you believe that Mr. Martinez believed you when you told him that?
Yes.
Do you believe that a normal person would be convinced to cooperate and to answer questions based on your statement that no matter what they said, they weren't going to be arrested?
Possible.
Did you put in your police report that you told Mr. Martinez that no matter what happened, he was not going to be arrested that night?
No, I did not.
Would you agree with me that you called and arranged for a private tow for Mr. Martinez's vehicle?
Yes.
And that suggests a private tow means that they're going to tow it to somewhere other than the tow yard as part of like a arrest, correct?
It's possible.
Okay. Well, if you arrest somebody and you tow their car, is that called a private tow?
No.
Okay. And you also agreed to let Mr. Martinez call somebody to come pick him up?
Correct.
Okay. So at that point, he was free to go because you didn't really have any reason to hold him. Is that a fair statement?
I believe so.
Would you agree with me that everything changed when Sergeant Callan arrived?
I don't believe everything changed now.
Okay. So Sergeant Callan didn't tell you, why isn't this guy under arrest?
I don't know what his exact words were at the time.
Okay. Would you agree with me that Sergeant Callan wasn't present when you administered the HGN the first time?
Yes.
Now, you conducted the HGN test a second time during the battery of the 3 standardized field sobriety tests, correct?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that on the second time you administered the HGN that you also only observed 3 clues?
I would not.
Okay. Do you recall at 2 hours, 15 minutes, and 46 seconds discussing the results of the standardized field sobriety test with Sergeant Callan?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Do you recall Sergeant Callan saying it can't be 3 clues? That's impossible. It must have been 4.
I don't know if that was his exact words or not.
Okay. Well, do you recall doing the HGN again at 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 35 seconds into the body cam video?
Yes.
Okay. So why would you administer the test for a 3rd time?
To make sure that the clues that I saw were actually the clues that I saw.
Okay. On the 1-leg stand test, on the walk and turn test, you said that Mr. Martinez stepped off the line?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember which step it was that he stepped off the line?
I do not remember at this time.
Okay. Do you remember whether it was 1 time or multiple times that he stepped off the line?
I do believe it was more than 1 time.
Okay. And did you have him perform it on an actual marked line or was it an imaginary line?
I do not remember at this time whether it was marked or imaginary.
Okay. Was that area of the street, is it kind of sloped or was the gravel deteriorated in some way?
No, the gravel is not deteriorated anyway, but in that area, there is a very slight incline.
Okay. Do you recall having a little trouble demonstrating the walk-in turn test?
No, I do not.
Okay. Do you remember saying whoops while you were doing the heel to toe demonstration?
No, sir.
Okay. Would you agree with me that initially you told Sergeant Cowan you only observed one clue on the one leg stand test?
I do not remember at this time.
Okay. And would it be fair to say that Mr. Martinez basically for 29 seconds held his foot and balanced, and then the last second he hopped and put his foot down? Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Anything else from this witness?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Is this witness released?
Yes, Your Honor. Ask the witness be excused.
He's
Released
released,
by
Your Honor.
defense? All right, you're free to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Based on the testimony I just heard, I'm going to grant the motion to suppress. I watched the video. Had he found a friend to pick him up that wasn't drinking, he would have had a ride home. I think this officer didn't have probable cause at the point that he continued the detention and continued questioning him. I think he actually even offered to drive him home himself at some point. And I think the sergeant that walked up changed his mind about everything. So I do believe there wasn't probable cause to continue the investigation or the detention. And so I am going to go ahead and grant the motion to suppress. And Mr. Martinez be found not guilty of the offense. All right. Any evidence that's been offered will be returned to the party that offered it. Good luck.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, thank you, Chris. Thank you. Have a good week.
You too.
Still there.
Be excused, Your Honor.
Will y'all let your other witness know, or should I bring her in and let her know?
If you want to just bring her in the room real quick, I can tell her.
All right. I think you're hooked up, but you're muted.
Hey,
You
listen.
want
Okay, there we go.
to-
Hey, Alyssa, thank you for being here. There was a running motion to suppress. It was granted. So we're going to get off the Zoom call and I'm going to give you a call on the phone. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right,
Thank you very
y'all.
much.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you, Judge.
See ya.
Bye.